name is Sarah Bizik. I am the Director of Counseling and Psychological Services and also Disability Services. And today I'm here to talk a little bit about how do we balance anxiety as we begin to leave our house related to the coronavirus. So to start, I just want to be able to give a couple preferences here. Let me get the screen working. I'm not a medical professional. I am a psychologist. My PhD is in counseling psychology. So I think it's important when we talk about some of the different things that people are doing to be able to help manage their anxiety. We're also talking about what people are doing to help manage their risk. So with that said, I'm going to put out information that is out there with some resources at the end where we got this information, but please speak to your doctor, your medical doctor, about your own individual risk factors. And have that information be helpful in your own guidance of what activities you participate in as we begin to open up more. I also want to note some different kind of privileges here is that this workshop is assuming that a lot of us have been able to stay home, to not be around others. And many individuals have been working this entire time with the public. So we would not really be able to recognize the amazing work of our frontline workers, whether working at grocery stores or within hospitals. It's really important to be able to recognize that piece of it, that there's been many individuals out there having to deal with managing their own anxieties while working with the public during this entire time. So really staying home was a privilege not everyone got to share in. So although we are going to talk about how do we balance our anxiety for those that have the privilege to be able to stay home and not be around a lot of individuals, we really want to be able to know that that is not everybody, and we do recognize that piece. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and jump in. So there are multiple methods that we can be able to use to be able to manage our worry. I'm going to go over some of them today, but there are many more. Those that are on live right now with us, there is a Q&A button. So if you have any questions or things that you want to share, what you've been doing or struggles you've been having, please feel free to use that chat box. If you're joining us after the live and watching our our post-recorded event, please feel free to email us too. You can email us at UM-Dearborn caps@umich.edu with any questions or concerns you might have, or really anything you want to share about what you're doing yourself to manage your own anxieties that you think would be helpful for other students to be aware of. So one of the things that we think is really important when we're talking about any type of anxiety that really relates to the anxiety that we have around coronavirus as well, is identifying what our actual worry is in order for us to create a plan. So is our worry that we're going to be confronted for wearing a mask? Is our worry going to be that we're going to be confronted for not wearing a mask because we have a medical condition that prohibits us from doing so? Our worry more related to our likelihood of getting this, whether we have a pre-existing condition, whether we've had loved ones that have got this in past. Really, what is our worry? Once we're able to identify what our worry and concern is, we can use that to be able to create a specific plan to be able to manage that concern. To be able to create that plan to really manage our own concern, we need to find facts. And I have highlighted here on the slide, real facts. And that's for a reason. There are lots of information out there, especially when you're just looking at Google. Everyone has an opinion of what we need to do to be able to keep ourselves safe as we've been trapped into the world. And everyone has, their own expertise that they claim. It's really easy to find a lot of information that contradicts itself. And the important thing to be able to recognize while we're going through this pandemic situation is that even the experts are learning. So at first, many said, oh, you don't have to wear masks. And now we're saying to wear masks. And some people are pointing that as a reason to not wear them. Look, they said at first not to wear them. What makes it mean that they're going to change their mind later on? The important thing to be able to remember again is we are learning about this. And we're trying to find the information as valuable as possible and to really discern that information as what's fact and what is no longer fact. So I definitely recommend being able to make sure that you're looking critically at the sources that you're getting. Facebook is not a legitimate source for real information. Your cousin's best friend's uncle is not a good source for real facts either. Looking at the CDC, looking at the World Health Organization, talking to your individual doctor, talking to different public health experts, and finding out what is the latest up-to-date information that may help you in your own personal transition as you move back and forward. Also, making a plan, structure a routine. So what I mean by this is, let's say we're having some anxiety about going to the grocery store. Maybe we have been doing delivery services, and we've decided that we want to go and try out what the grocery store is and what that looks like. Create a plan for that. Be prepared for what it might look like when you go there. If you haven't been to grocery stores, you might be a little thrown off when you go there and there are arrows in the aisles, or there are a certain number of individuals allowed out to store at a time, or the different signs that say keep 6 foot distance, or really seeing a lot of people in a space with masks. So create a plan of what that's going to look like. What are you going to do once you get there? What is your goal for being there? What happens if you need to step back? Where can you be able to take that step back at? When we have a plan, we feel like we have a better sense of control that can often help be able to manage our anxiety. Related to that is creating a prep kit. A prep kit is simple. It is having the information and the items that you need to be able to go out onto your event and feel prepared for that. Let's look at that grocery store example again. Let's say you're going to the grocery store. Some things you might want to have on your prep kit is a list of items that you need. So when you're there and maybe you're feeling a little bit more anxious or that heightened anxiety, you don't forget why you're there to begin with. And that adds more to our anxiety. Other things you might need for that trip to the grocery store is a mask that you've already tried on beforehand, that you feel comfortable in, that you feel that is fitted for you and isn't going to make you constantly be touching your face. In addition, making sure that you have hand sanitizer. When you're out at a grocery store, you're not going to have access to soap and water in the same way that you might at your home. So making sure you have some type of pocket hand sanitizer to be able to take with you while you're out there. If you also still have any type of anti-disinfectant wipes, bringing that with you to the grocery store to make sure that you feel comfortable in wiping off your cart. If not, again, you can be able to make sure that the people there at that store have wiped down that cart and use that hand sanitizer while avoiding touching your face. Other things that you might want to take into consideration for your prep kit besides mask and hand sanitizer could be things as simple as gloves. Some people feel comfortable wearing gloves, others prefer not to. Finding out what's comfortable for you and making sure that you have enough of those supplies when you go out so that you feel prepared. Nothing heightens anxiety more than getting to a place and feeling underprepared with the resources you have at hand. We're really taking the time to create that prep kit so to make sure that you have the information and items you need to be able to keep yourself as safe as possible while in that environment. I think also related to that is recognizing that some anxiety is expected and normal and even helpful. I know when I've had conversations with colleagues about this topic, it often comes up as there seems to be two groups, people who are really anxious about stepping out and others who think it's back to normal, that everything is exactly as it was before and there's no need for masks or hand sanitizers or gloves or keeping that 6 foot social distance. So recognizing that some of that anxiety about running into individuals who may not take the same precautions is expected and normal and can be helpful for you in the fact it can help guide what you do and what events you decide to participate in. So for example, if you yourself are in a higher risk category or you live with someone in a higher risk category, that anxiety about going out is real, it's expected, it isn't something that you want to get away from, that maybe you want to be able to use to empower you to make your different decisions. I know for myself, I probably won't be going into events that have large amounts of people. That is my personal decision for my personal health to be able to make sure that I am taking care of myself the way that I need to be able to do so. That anxiety that I think about or that comes over me as I think about being in those large group situations is expected, is normal, and helps me be able to say, that's not a decision I would like to make for myself at this point in time. Related to that, though, is making sure we have some kind of counter statements or desensitizing information that can help be able to manage some of those racing thoughts. A big accompaniment that you often see with anxiety is racing unrealistic thoughts. Now, again, this is different than those expected, normal, understandable thoughts of the unknown, since as we've already said, there's so much we don't know yet about this virus. But looking at maybe those thoughts of, if I go outside on my back porch, I'm going to catch this and I'm going to die. Let's look at that statement. So I'm going outside on my back porch. Is there any people around on my back porch? No. Am I close to any other houses or individuals that might be close to my porch? No. So what's the actual likelihood of me, one, catching this when I go out on my back porch and then passing away from it? Pretty low. So that's an extreme example of a counter statement, but it kind of shows the difference between understandable anxiety and maybe anxiety has become too overwhelming and it's freezing us from being able to participate in some type of self-care. Locking ourselves away in our bedrooms is not going to be helpful for anybody, but taking smart, precautious steps to figure out what's going to work best for ourselves and our families is an important thing to be able to do. Related to that is practicing some type of relaxation, relaxation of your body and your mind. So I've talked with some different individuals who say, ooh, I used to use deep breathing with the thought of taking some deep breaths. Right now with the virus going around, that just adds anxiety to me. Okay, so maybe now is the time to look at some different ways to practice relaxation. So if you're stepping out on that back porch and you're still having those racing thoughts and you're using that counter statement that says there's no reason to be concerned right now on my back porch, this is going to be okay, pay attention to your body. Pay attention to the tension that you might feel and begin to relax those different muscles. Having some type of relaxation activity that you can take on the go, no matter where you are, can be able to help you as we step out and manage the different anxieties that are naturally going to come. Related also to that is taking that step-by-step gradual process of adjusting to a new normal. The key sentence or part of that sentence that I really want to point out is new normal. This is not back to normal as was before. This virus is still with us. It is still active. And although Michigan has done a great job of being able to flatten that curve and lower our cases, we still want to be cautious and make sure that we are making those informed decisions for ourselves. So from going from nowhere at all to going to the big house party may not be the most public health informed decision to be able to do. But taking that step-by-step gradual process of adjusting to the new normal, finding out the different places that are following the different values and public health information that you hold, and going to those places are going to be important. Recognizing that none of the different things that we have out there is 100% effective. With more different things that we engage in, the less chance we have to be able to catch them. So making sure that we have those masks, we are washing our hands or being able to use antiseptic hand sanitizer. Also making sure we're not touching our face, using gloves. All these different things layered together can really be able to help us lower the risk. And that's a big part of what we're doing now, is recognizing how we can lower the risk to lower our anxiety. So related to that, you keep hearing me say lower the risk. That comes really from a harm reduction approach. This approach really recognizes the fact that there is no activity that's going to have zero risk. So it supports lower risk, not zero risk activities that can be sustained over time. Yes, we all have, or some of us have the opportunity or privilege to be able to stay in our house. We can be able to work from home. Like myself, I'm an individual who has the privilege to be able to work from home. I could also get groceries delivered because I work in an area that is available to me. I could even do curbside pickup because I'm privileged enough to have a vehicle. So that is more of a zero risk. I could only interact with the people who live in my household, and none of us actually leave the household. We don't go outside past our yard, so we're not engaging at all with any other individual. That is really hard to be able to sustain over time. And sometimes we don't have the opportunities or privilege to be able to sustain that over time. So again, the harm reduction approach says, well, how do we support lower risk activities? Really recognizing that risk isn't all or nothing, but there's different varying degrees of that. An example of a harm reduction approach can be seen in Canada's double bubbles. I definitely suggest looking up this kind of approach to social distancing or physical distancing that some Canadians are taking. Basically what it is having different individuals that aren't in your household as part of your bubble, your social distance physical bubble, that you've all agreed to be able to continue to interact with each other, but you're all taking the same risk reduction processes so that you feel that there's less risk within this group of individuals. So you still have a group of individuals you can socialize with, and connect with and spend time with and be closer than 6 feet with. But that you all, again, have that agreed upon rules of what you're going to do when you're not together, so to make sure that not anyone's bringing that risk in. I've seen this used a lot with people with children who want to be able to make sure that their children have other children to be able to play with, to be able to be around and spend time with. But the parents all agree that they are not taking unnecessary risks, not engaging in high risk activities. And so they're willing to take the lower risk possibility of extending their social network and social support system because they feel that's important to them. That is a harm reduction approach. It's not zero risk, but it is a lower risk activity. Another example of a harm reduction approach could be shopping in the morning. So we all know that many of the different stores are closing that used to be 24 hours and doing extensive cleaning in the evening time. Also, there usually are less shoppers available or they're at the store in the morning. So let's say we want to actually go to that grocery store. We want to be able to go to that Kohl's or JCPenney's or any type of retail store, going in the morning after cleaning has happened, unless individuals have been present. We still go and remain our 6 feet distance. We still go with our mask, but we engage in behavior that is less risky, more lower risk. Another example is the difference between outdoor seating at a restaurant or indoor seating at a restaurant. Outdoor seating has been shown to be less risky at this point than indoor seating. Both carry a risk, but the harm reduction approach really looks at the different options that we have and what risk we're comfortable taking and what we're doing. And again, still being able to look at if you have options to be able to reduce the different activities that are risky that you're taking. So for instance, maybe you want to engage in the double bubble and have, a couple of different households that you agree with, being able to spend time together with and engage in low risk activities. And to be able to lower those risks, you make sure that you don't go to grocery stores. You still have home delivery options being able to be served for you, so that you reduce the different types of contacts you're having with individuals in the different environment. No one is saying you have to stay home and be around no one. But again, the abstinence only thing is staying home and being around no one. That is more zero risk. Harm reduction is saying, all right, well, we're beginning to be able to open up. We need to be around others. What can I be able to do to reduce that risk? So some questions to be considered for yourself when you're asking, is this a higher risk activity? Is this a lower risk activity? And again, these come from more the CDC. So this is not Sarah's personal opinion. This is public health experts who really focus in this area. And really answering yourself these questions can be able to help you determine risk, which also can help them reduce your anxiety. So asking yourself the question is, how many people will you interact with if you're involved in that activity? Can you keep a 6 feet of space between you and others? Will you be outdoors or indoors? Is coronavirus spreading in your community? So again, I mentioned earlier on that Michigan has flattened the curve wonderfully and that we have lower cases. And so again, looking at your individual communities though, that might vary depending on what county that you're living in as time goes on. Also, how long are you going to be interacting with people? 10-minute interactions versus 3 hours does have a different risk factor as well. Also connect to that, your own personal health or the people that you live with, asking yourself that question. Am I or someone I live with at risk for severe illness? What precautions do I need to be able to take when I'm engaging in these different activities to be able to lower the risk as much as possible? Again, activities are safer if you can maintain that 6 foot of space between you and others, because coronavirus does spread easily between people who are within 6 feet of each other. Indoor activities are higher risk than outdoor activities because of less ventilation. And even interacting without wearing any type of face covering does increase your risk. Now, again, recognizing the fact that there are many medical reasons why you might not be able to engage in wearing a face covering, and so coming with alternatives for that. I've heard some people say, well, if you have those higher risk medical reasons and that's why you can't wear a mask, well, then you probably shouldn't go out at all because coronavirus will be really bad for you. Okay, but is it also not fair to just assume that you're going to be indoors for the next 18 months plus? No, that's not taking a very social justice approach. So finding out some different ways to be able to maybe have some facial coverings that provide you some protection and is able to help you engage more with the different lower risk activities. The one option that I've had some individuals look into is different face shields. Myself, I'm a mother of a child under 2 years old. It is not recommended for a child under 2 years old to wear a face mask covering. So one of the things that we've really looked at to figure out how do we be able to have him still be able to go outdoors and go to doctor's appointments and such is being able to have that face shield that still provides some protection in spreading germs to others and doesn't in any way inhibit his breathing. So looking into some of those different creative solutions out there to be able to still protect yourself and those around you and be able to still engage in those more lower risk activities. So again, this is not mine in any way, shape, or form. You'll see the reference at the very bottom of the screen. But there are different public health experts currently, and this is June 2020, depending when you're watching this, as far as what the risk factors are. And there are great variants of those that say that maybe this activity is a 5 and others that say it's an 8. I definitely recommend talking to your personal doctor, but also looking at the descriptions in this actual article that talk about what makes something more risky and why some consider a risky activity where others of the public health officials interviewed considered it less risky. But it's a good general guideline to be able to think about is kind of what are those lower risk activities. Your anxiety might be higher if you're at a big concert surrounded by 80,000 individuals, and that might be understandable given the fact that the coronavirus is still spreading. But let's say that you are taking a walk around your neighborhood, you're socially distancing, you're wearing that mask, you're still having anxiety. Going back to that first slide and making sure you're engaging in some of those different activities of self-talk and relaxation to be able to help you be able to engage more. So this is something that comes up a lot, and I wanted to make sure that we were addressing this when we're talking about anxiety related to getting back out there. The question of what if I'm out and wearing my mask and someone says something to me negative about me wearing one? And this is a hard thing. No one wants to be involved in that type of confrontation. We're all making decisions on ourselves based on our best ability to focus on our health and those around us. And so being out in an environment where those others might feel that they have the right to confront us about taking those decisions for our public, for our health, is really difficult and understandably anxiety provoking. One of the things that a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy points to, which we kind of really think is a really helpful skill, at least for this part, is weighing the opinion of a stranger. So this is someone you don't know who felt that they needed to comment on the fact that you're wearing a mask. Maybe it's someone at the grocery store. Maybe it's someone when you're walking through a parking lot that you run into that says, oh, do you feel safer now? And we take that personally. It raises our anxiety. It makes us feel uncomfortable. And that's understandable. That's the first part. It's understandable. And then we need to look at, and who is this person to me? Why is this stranger's opinion about what I'm wearing important to me? And I think that really could help put things in perspective. This is an individual you'll probably never run into again. You don't have to have interactions with. You in no way, shape, or form have to respond to them. It's just continuing to go on and reminding yourself the reasons why you're doing these things and how you're following the science and doing what you need to do for your own health. I've also unfortunate individuals say, well, what if it's my family? So what if I'm taking all the different precautions, which is helping me manage my anxiety and making me feel like I'm being, public health informed decisions, but my cousin who I'm running into is saying something about, me wearing a mask. How do I be able to manage that? And that does make it much more difficult, doesn't it? Because family, we do value their opinion. So weighting their opinion of a stranger is very different with weighting the opinion of a family member. So being able to recognize again that we're all going to make different decisions. And this does not mean the decision we're making to be able to wear a mask that's going to help us is wrong. We can't control what other people do. We can only control what we can be able to do and give the information that a person might not have about why this is important. I'm going to stop for a second. I think someone had a question here. The question I have here is that what is related to anxiety? If you've never had anxiety, but ever since staying at home it's started to develop, what is the best way to deal with it? Because it's a new feeling. Sure. Well, I think that that's a big piece is that a lot of individuals who may not have anxiety before are experiencing it now because we are going through a global pandemic, right? So that is in itself anxiety provoking. So I would go back to that moment of recognizing the fact that it's understandable that you're feeling this anxiety and that part of that self-acceptance and grace actually helps us to lower that anxiety. Anxiety in itself is not a bad or negative emotion. It's what it causes us to do or not do that can be healthy or unhealthy. So if you're feeling at the point where that your anxiety is causing you to engage in unhealthy behavior, maybe it's paralyzing you from being able to go out and do the different things you want to be able to do, that's when we would go into, well, how do you be able to begin to manage that? Some ways to be able to manage that might be finding out exactly what that fear is, where that anxiety is stemming from, and gathering facts about that. Engaging in more relaxation exercises, creating a plan for how you're going to tackle whatever that specific fear is coming from. And let's say that you've gone through all these steps and you're like, I'm still feeling really anxious and I don't know how to manage it. You know, there's these general steps that I'm talking about, but really maybe talking to a counselor about specifically what your fears are and having that individual work with you to find out a specific plan to be able to help you manage that. I think that as we move forward with a lot of the different things that we're going to see, is that a lot of individuals who may not have experienced anxiety before are going to be experiencing it now. I come from a very trauma-informed approach of working with individuals and counseling. And one of the things that a trauma-informed approach really focuses on is that when we're going through a trauma, it's really hard to be able to really get and grasp what we're feeling. It's as we become to come out of that trauma, that's when all the emotions start coming up. I would make the statement that we're all experiencing a collective trauma right now. Going through a global pandemic is a traumatic experience. Even if we were not personally impacted, it's a traumatic experience. Even more so if we're personally impacted, a traumatic experience. Anxiety is understandable when you go through that. Doesn't mean it's enjoyable, doesn't mean it's something you want to keep around, but it's a normal reaction to going through an abnormal situation. So again, I hope that some of the general tips of being able to really figure out what it is that's causing that anxiety, collecting facts about that, and be able to engage in some relaxation will help manage some of that anxiety. But also giving yourself that grace that anxiety is to be expected will also help as well. And if that does not help, I definitely suggest contacting us at UM-Dearborn CAPS at umich.edu so we can be able to set up an appointment to be able to look at your individual concerns and help you be able to figure out some ways to manage it. Because any new emotion that we're not used to having is going to be hard for us to manage at first because it's new. So I hope that answers some of your question there. All right, I think I got something in the chat. Yes, so someone asked, would you be able to share the table from the previous slide? Absolutely. So one, this is being recorded. So after this is ended, we will have this entire presentation available for you in a link. You'll just go to umdearborn.edu/CAPS and go to our helpful resource page. And under our helpful resource page is a whole list of all our recorded workshops. So you can be able to check it out there. I could also be able to add it just to our website in general under our helpful resource if you're just interested in being able to see that list. But I'll go back for it for a second. If you just want to jot down the very bottom, it tells you the authors of that list, which might be able to help you be able to look it up too, to be able to find it. I'll give a second for that. So while people are writing that piece down, I'll go on to the other question that some people have a lot of anxiety about is we are saying very clearly that masks are helpful, right? But that it's important for both individuals to be wearing masks. Social distancing is helpful, but obviously that requires the cooperation of both individuals to be able to engage in that 6 feet social distancing. So some of the anxiety that people are having related to going out within the public is not everybody is engaging in those type of rules. And so I think that's the understandable, again, part of anxiety that we're all going to be experiencing is what do we do if we are out and we walk into a store and no one's wearing masks or people don't seem to be respecting that 6 foot radius. And I do think that that's a personal decision that many people have to be able to make for themselves. Because again, I think that that anxiety isn't the problem. That anxiety right then at that point in time is your red flag that, hey, this is not a good situation for me. This is not a publicly health-informed decision for me to be at. And so what I encourage people to do is be able to figure out whether you have to be in that store. You know, if you're going in that store and 80% of the individuals are not wearing masks and don't seem to be really respecting your 6 foot social distance, maybe it's a good idea to go to a different store. Now, I recognize that not everybody has that privilege to be able to make those decisions, but again, I think it's something important to decide and look at when we're looking at planning those different outings, is finding out what is that actual store's policy and how much are they enforcing those different policies, so to make sure that we're making our own publicly health conscious decisions about the places that we want to go and the activities we want to be involved with. I'm gonna click over. So I mentioned relaxation exercises. I really want to point out some mindfulness relaxation exercises, because relaxation exercises really help us to face the unknown. It helps us to be able to, bring about our anxiety under a manageable place. One of my favorite types of progressive muscle relaxation exercises is progressive muscle relaxation. And the reason I like this is I can't always seem to be able to manage the feelings that come out, right? Anxiety just happens, it's a feeling. I can't always be able to just stop the thoughts running through my head of the what ifs. But maybe I can be able to tackle the different tension that comes up in my body and therefore be able to lessen some of that anxiety and lessen some of those racing thoughts. Progressive muscle relaxation are great ways to be able to do it. It is not, a full body workout. It is not even as strenuous as yoga. It literally is just being able to focus on different parts of your body, tensing them up and studying how that feels and relaxing them down. By doing this, you can be able to help lower your anxiety in general. And in addition, you're going to find out where you keep a lot of your tension. So personally for myself, when I'm anxious, I found out by doing progressive muscle relaxation that a lot of my anxiety is right here in my shoulders. And how I found that out was it's the hardest place for me to relax. And now that I'm aware of it, I can recognize that maybe my tension or anxiety is getting high, even when I'm not consciously aware of it, because all of a sudden my shoulders are getting closer and closer to my ear. The great thing about progressive muscle relaxation too is that once you kind of identify really where you're having that anxiety, you can take that one body part and do the relaxation on the go. So let's say we're in that store and 85% of the people are following social distancing and masks. But of course, you kind of run across the one person who isn't. You take your steps back, you manage to get your own, social distance pieces, you go to the other side, but it really brought up your anxiety. What do you do right then and there? People say, well, close your eyes, breathe, do guided imagery. Oh, we're not all going to feel comfortable doing that in the middle of a grocery store. The great thing about progressive muscle relaxation is tensing your shoulders up and relaxing them down. Doing that, 5 to 10 times. No one's going to know what you're doing. It looks like you're just stretching, right? So you can fit right in with no one knowing or even trying to do relaxation exercises. So something you can be able to do on the go, no matter where you're at, and that can help you to be able to relax down your body. For some great other examples of mindfulness relaxations and progressive muscle relaxation, I'm going to refer back to that website I just mentioned, UM-Dearborn.edu/CAPS. Under helpful resources, we have the whole link of the pre-recorded live workshops that we've been doing. And there are multiple under the relaxation heading that are done from our staff and our previous graduate trainees that might help you. I definitely recommend trying different videos out, different exercises out, because it's all going to work differently for each of us, especially if managing our anxiety is something new to us. So definitely give it a shot. If you're trying to figure out some different ways to be able to manage maybe the racing thoughts, I will also recommend that going back to that helpful resource page, you as a UM student, staff, or faculty now have access to a program called Silver Cloud. And this just launched about a week ago. And what Silver Cloud is actually online at your own pace, cognitive behavioral therapy. So it focuses on resiliency training. It focuses on relaxation, managing anxiety, managing depression, with all different skills that you can be able to learn from the comfort of your own home. So maybe you're not ready to be able to email one of us and get in with counseling, but you want to be able to learn some different skills and see if those work out. Definitely give Silver Cloud a shot. There's even a quiz that you can take when you first sign in, and based on those quiz and the answers that you give, it can recommend different modules for you to be able to take and focus on to be able to help with your specific concerns. So again, if you go to UM-Dearborn.edu/CAPS and go into the helpful resources, there's a direct link for you to be able to sign up for Silver Cloud free as a U of M Dearborn student, staff, or faculty, so to help you manage some of those different stressors that you might be under right now. So some ending thoughts, just in general. I think this is super important to remember, is being compassionate with yourself and others. As I've mentioned previously, there's so much we don't know about the coronavirus. There's so much we don't know about what it's going to look like creating this new normal. Any change, even positive changes, are scary and anxiety provoking because they're new and they're unknown. So when we're getting thrown into something like, oh, a global pandemic, we're going to feel even more anxiety. We're going to be even more concerned about the unknown. So being compassionate and giving yourself some grace is a really important step to be. Trying to remember that we're all doing our best that we can to be able to survive, understanding what we know and what we accept. And so I think that's a really important part of this. I think it also helps to lower anxiety when we recognize it's understandable to have a bad day. It's understandable to be a little bit scared about things that are scary. It's understandable to be anxious about something that's anxiety provoking. Again, I really want to press on the fact, though, that feeling these emotions, although normal, doesn't always feel good. So I do not want to discount anyone's experience or come across that I'm saying, oh, it's expected, it'll be okay. Just because it's an expected reaction doesn't mean it's something that's enjoyable or that we need to go through by ourselves. Making sure that we're reaching out to our social support, and if we feel we don't have social support, reaching out to the different services that you do have available as a student, staff, or faculty here at UM-Dearborn. If you're a student, again, watching this, you would just email umdearborncaps@umich.edu. If you're a staff or faculty watching this, you also have access to free mental health services through the Faculty and Staff Counseling Consultation Office, which you can also be able to email for resources as well. So I promised some resources. So again, I said this is not Sarah's information. This is information that is been informed from a public health policy. So I think even more now, it's important to be able to look where those resources are, think critically about those resources, and to be able to make sure that the information we're getting is the most up-to-date and factual information. It's one of the reasons why I noted that this is June 2020, because if you're watching this in August 2020, it might look a little different about what the different recommendations are, because it might look different depending where this goes and what the projection of the virus looks like. But I think that these are good resources to be able to look at. They are here on the slide, again, that you can be able to jot down, but it's also going to be listed under a helpful resources page, so you can be able to access that directly as well. So with that said, do I have any other questions or comments from the individuals who are watching this presentation live? I'll wait a couple seconds to see if anybody wants to type out any information. And again, for those watching it live, if you can't think of anything right now, but you end up thinking about something later, you can always feel free to email the general email, or you can email me directly. Again, my name is Sarah Biasek. I'm the Director of Counseling and Psychological Services. So if you just go to our website under Meet Our Staff, you will see our contact information right there. So even if you don't remember my name, just remember it was the director. And I'd be glad to be able to answer any questions that you might have too. Check the chat real quick. All right. Okay. It doesn't look like we have any other questions. So thank you again for those that attended live and those who are watching this after the fact. Again, I'm glad you were able to get this information as well. I hope you have a great day.